All right, extreme beginners, we're doing some great watercolors. This is Chris. We're going to actually dial back a little bit here, and we're going to try to do some swatches and some exercises for brushwork, because when you're painting watercolors, if you can get an advantage and practice in a loose, free, fun way, just doing little swatches you can make up on your own. You can create your own ideas. You can use the ones I'm going to show here. I prefer you try these first and then maybe do some spin-offs on what I'm doing. And there's other ones that I'm not going to do that I know about, and I'll do those in the future. So keep a lookout for the future videos when we're going to do more of these type of videos and exercises. But the main thing I want you to understand, and you know, I still learn myself too. I'm always practicing. If I want to learn a new technique or something that I see another artist doing on YouTube, or you know, I look at a painting and I kind of see that in the painting they're using some kind of interesting technique, I might try it on some inexpensive watercolor paper. You can use also for these exercises. A lot of times I use printer paper. I just take a piece of printer paper that I get, you know, office printer paper, and I set it down and tape it down to my art table, and then I'll do my swatches on printer paper because it's very inexpensive. You can do tons of these. You can work for an hour and go through 10-15 sheets of this paper, the printer paper, and then there's no harm done. You know, you're not worrying about having to go out and buy, you know, watercolor pads every other day or so. So that's always a great thing to utilize, printer paper. To do your swatches and brushwork, you don't need to be working on finished paper. You could use a less expensive watercolor paper to do your swatches. Eventually, you'll want to do it on your better paper too, to get used to your better paper and how it works. But basically, going through the technique of your brushwork is real important, because it just sets you up for success, so that when you're inside your watercolor painting and you're painting around a difficult object or something, or you have to do a section that's really tight, you'll already have the skill and the brushwork to do those areas, so that you won't get kind of bogged down and losing time trying to fiddle with your brush, trying to get a spot done. You'll already have the skill just to go in there and do the section quickly, because as you know, watercolor is like a faster medium. You kind of got to work a little quick at it most times. You know, you can't just take your time. A lot of times you need to have all those washes mingling together and working through your painting as you're going. And you know that already. Even if you're just starting out in watercolor, you can kind of see it dries fast. So let's get started. So what I'm going to do is we'll just use our three main brushes we normally use. The Prang, we're using our Prang set, our watercolor semi-moist watercolor set. It's the Prang Oval 16 set, made by Dixon, Ticonderoga Company. And I take a little bit of water in a spritzer bottle, and I just spritz the water on there, just a tiny bit, not too much. You don't need a whole lot, just a little bit. That gets the paints moister and a little bit activated. And then again, I'll have my other, so the Prang, this comes with the set, so you get this brush with the set. So you're already set up, you don't need anything else really. You can just start with this, and that's plenty to keep you busy for a long time. You know, you can paint a whole year just using this one round brush and your paint sets, and you're going to be fine. This is a really nice medium-sized brush. It's not really super small, but it's not also too large. It's right in the middle, just right, to practice with all the time and paint. Although I would suggest too, there's Princeton brushes. This is a Princeton square brush or flat brush. You can get this in the packs. There's like, maybe you get for $5, you can get like 5 or 6 brushes like this, synthetic brushes, like maybe 1 or 2 of these. I think the other one is, well, I have it around here somewhere, but so there's maybe a couple of those flat brushes like this, and then there's a couple round brushes like this in the set when you buy the Princeton brush sets online. They're like $6-7. So you can buy a multi-pack and get a whole bunch of different brushes in one pack. You can experiment with flat brushes, round brushes, and so forth. And then again, this is another round brush, just a little bit larger than the one we just looked at. So the one that comes with the set, the Prang brush here, this one's a little larger. It's got a little more larger amount of hairs on it, holds a little bit of more paint and water. So this is good for a little bit larger areas you need to paint. So just to cover the brushes a little bit in what we're doing. And then of course, next to me, I have in my art table, I have my container with water, and then you can have a sponge next to your water container to the right or to the left if you're a lefty, or if you're a righty, you're going to have your brushes and your more or less, if you're a right-handed person, most people are right-handed, you're going to have your water container to your right. You'll have your sponge next to your water container, and this way you can take water off your brush. So you rinse your brush, and then you touch this just a little bit quick, and then you go in and do your grabbing your paint and whatever you're doing. But it's good to check a little bit of water off first a lot of times with your watercolor brushes, otherwise it'll be too much water flooding in your palette. And then also too, you can use, instead of a sponge, you can just use a tissue. You rinse your brush in the water pail. We could even do it like this here. We rinse our brush in the water pail, touch this just a couple times on the tissue to get a little bit of the water off, and then you can go in and grab the paint, and then we do our painting. So that's basically the real basic, simple format and technique and method of watercolor painting from my experiences. That's what I learned, and it works great for me, and I think it'll work great for you too. And you can always, eventually, once you've gotten really familiar with the way I do things, and you can start challenging yourself and doing different things too as well on your own, and that's up to you. Okay, so now we were talking about swatches and exercises, because this is what's going to actually help you tremendously when you're painting watercolors, if you can practice your brushwork ahead of time. So that's why we do swatches. So the first thing I will do is you can just you draw a square or a rectangle like so. That's it, with a pencil. Office pencil. This is a Statler pencil, Mars Lumograph pencil. They come in tins. You can buy them like 20 at a time. These are really nice pencils. They come in all different kinds of softness of lead. And okay, so now we're going to go in. We're going to use our stock brush we got with our paint set. I rinse my brush off, touch down a little bit on the tissue to get some of the water off. And let's just do an orange here. And then now, before we go in and do this, we'll kind of give these swatches a designation of what style brushstroke we're going to use, so you can work with brushstroke style. So this one we're going to do an S stroke, like this. So we're going to call this an S stroke, like that. And you can label this right on your paper, so you'll kind of have it. And you can even, to make it easier for yourself, you can draw perhaps maybe three or four, like this. 1, 2, 3. Let's go 4. So you just draw 4 rectangles or squares. They don't have to be perfect. And we'll start out, and let's mix some blue in with that. So I'll do a mixture of orange and blue. And we'll do an S stroke. So the first thing we do with the S stroke, we get our paint, start up here on this side of the rectangle or the square, and you just take your brush and you swing it around, stay with inside the square or the rectangle, like that. And that's the first. Then we're going to up our game here. Now we're going to go to the next here. I'm just going to show you the progression of how it looks when you're doing it. So this would be the first movement, the S shape. So here, I'm going to load up my pan with a little more water. Now we're going to do the S shape like this. And then we're going to go in and we're going to start doing this. Okay, so now you see I filled in the rest of the S with variations of different kinds of strokes. Now this is where I've practiced many different strokes, and I've been painting a long time too, so never get worried. If I've been painting 15 years professionally, which means I'm painting a lot, I'm working at it like 30, 40 hours a week, doing drawing, painting, and so forth, don't be hard on yourself. It takes time to get these swatches looking like this. So your first ones are going to be messy until you start working a couple months at this, and then you'll get better and better each time you paint them. You can make them smaller or larger, whatever helps you. Probably in the beginning, if you're using this style brush, you're going to want to keep these kind of small, about 1.5 inch by 1.5 inch or 1 inch by 1 inch. So that's the basics of it. And then you can go with, let's do a second one. So we'll set our brush down here. We'll do this one, we'll do an H stroke. This one is, like I already noticed, let's move up to this larger brush, I think. For this size brush, the prang brush that comes with the set, probably this might be, this is pretty good size. You might want to go a little smaller. This brush here, the Simply Simmons number 6 round brush, this one's more suited better for these size. So this one you might want to make your squares a little smaller, because this brush is a little bit, I was starting to run out of paint, as you can see down here. So you can make your square a little smaller and adjust it accordingly. But now let's try some red. Red and orange. A little bit of yellow. Okay, now we're going to do an H stroke. The H stroke, you can basically do, I rest my hand on the paper. So I have my hand on the paper, and then I go up once like this, twice like this, and then across the middle. That's an H. I go back in to get more water, and then I just kind of like an S stroke in here and fill in the rest. And then fine tune it like that. And then you have an H stroke. And you can do another variation on this. And these are just, ones you start out with, and then you create your own if you like. Does that make sense? You can venture out and create your own, but at least if you have some structure here to start with. So this will be a Z stroke. And the Z stroke is, let's try this, let's do green. You mix up some greens, whatever you like, a little bit of yellow in there, maybe a little blue, some green over here. There you go, you mix it up a little bit. And let's do the Z stroke. Now the Z stroke is similar to the S, but you're just kind of going in the different direction, and you're not doing much of that like twisting and turning of the brush stroke. You're kind of just going more straight with the Z shape, the Z shape, and you just do that. There we go. That's the Z stroke. And then once you've got your first Z stroke down, then you're just going to fill in the rest with, you could do some upstrokes like this, once, twice there, and then over here maybe 2 downstrokes, once, twice, 3 times there, and then you just tidy up around your areas where the lines are. Now what this does is as you practice these, your accuracy with your brush is going to get phenomenal. If you just keep practicing these over and over and over, then when you go in to do a painting, you're not even going to be thinking about what your brush is doing. It's going to be doing it itself, almost like it's magic. It actually becomes like magic. It's the same thing when let's say you drive a car, or let's say you, different things we do for tasks every day. Driving a car is the most simplest thing I can think of, is where after you've been driving a couple years, 2 or 3 years of driving, you're not thinking so much about the brakes and the gas pedal and the steering and all these different things. You know what I'm saying? You're kind of you get in the car and you're able to focus on the traffic in front of you and the cars going by. You're looking at those things, and you're just automatically, your brain is functioning, understanding that you've already learned the principles of all the braking, the gas pedal, turning the wheel. Does that make sense? So that's for someone that drives. If you don't drive, it could be something like a sport. If you play tennis or baseball or football or basketball, throwing a ball, swinging a bat, swinging a tennis racket, after a while you get so good at it and you practice it so much, you don't even think about it anymore. You're focusing on other things. And that comes naturally. You're automatically an autopilot. So basically it's an autopilot thing. The more you practice your brush strokes like this, on separate paper, just having a fun time, put on some fun music or your favorite TV shows while you're doing these exercises with a cup of tea, cup of coffee, whatever you have, you like to drink, and little cookies, whatever you're having, and snacks, whatever, you're doing your these type of exercises, you don't have to, it's not a big deal. You're just practicing fundamentals, yet while you're having so much fun doing it, because you're doing some other things that you like to do too that are fun, like myself too. I'll put on the TV, watch my favorite shows, TV, listen to the radio, some music, whatever it is. When you're doing these exercises while you're doing those other fun things, it'll be more fun, so that when you're in your painting, you won't be stressing, because you'll be doing your brush work in a loose, free, fun way, because you've practiced it in that way. So you won't be struggling trying to figure out how you're going to do the next area of your watercolor painting that's a little difficult with your brush. You'll just go in there and do it. You'll do an S stroke, you'll do a Z stroke, you'll do an H stroke, whatever it is, you'll just automatically do it. And we'll do some other ones here too, so we'll keep going, but I'm just going to take a quick break and come back, and we'll continue with our swatches here, which I think are absolutely invaluable for a watercolor artist. I think if you're not doing these or not trying these and kind of doing these on a steady basis, especially in the beginning, after a while you won't need to do them anymore. But in the beginning, it's really crucial to do these, because it will give you a huge advantage once you're in there painting. So it'll give your painting part of your watercolors, it'll go so much smoother for you, and I want that for you. I don't want to see you having to struggle when you're painting. I want to see you in there having a great time, putting down the washes on your paintings, and you're just doing it with ease, no problem. And trust me, it's going to work as long as you just practice these every once in a while, however much you can do it. Try to do it, and it's fun, and you don't need to really, it's no stress. It's all the stress and pressure's off when you're doing these. You're just doing these for fun, and you're doing them while you're just having some fun watching TV or listening to music or whatever. While you're on the phone, maybe whatever it is, you can do all these kind of fun things at your leisure whenever you want. Okay, let's come back. We're going to do some more of these, and we're bringing you oodles of information, and I hope you like it. And if you like this channel, please, give us, hit the subscribe button down there on the right-hand side. And if you hit the notification bell by the subscribe button, you'll also be alerted when our videos come out. And this way you'll have that. You'll know exactly when my video comes out, and then we'll be here, and you can jump in and watch the video first, then maybe you come back and watch it and work along with it the second time. However you like to do it. You're the artist. You're going to figure out how you're going to schedule your time with your artwork and all that. But just wanted to mention that, and thank you so much for watching every week. And we're going to be right back, and we're going to do some more swatches here and have a great time of it. Okay, so we'll be right back. Okay, we are back, everybody. We're back in business here. We're going to be doing our additional swatches here. Have fun, create them like we're doing here. Label them. Create your own labeling charts, have fun with it. I really felt that in the beginning of watercolor, when I first started painting, I always really enjoyed these type of things, because in many of the books that I was reading at the time, they always suggested doing swatches and practicing these exercises. So that's why I'm hoping you'll do these too. It'll help you again tremendously. So let's get started. We'll go over here. Maybe we'll do let's do some more of a free. We're going to call these vertical upstrokes. Okay, so these are going to be vertical upstrokes. Now here we'll have a little more fun with our colors. So here I'm going to make a range of colors, and you can do this too. In the beginning, you maybe just do the 1 or 2 colors you like to do, but right now I'm going to add just a few more colors to make it interesting for myself. Maybe I'm just being self-indulgent here. And let's see here, orange, cadmium orange. Looks like a cadmium orange, this one. All right, and some yellow. There we go. So I made a whole range of reds. I rinse my brush off, take a little bit of water off on the sponge, so I have my sponge next to my water container. Rinse my brush, you can kind of hear that. Then I tap the brush on this just a little bit, and then I can go in and pick up some paints. So we're going to do vertical upstrokes, and basically the technique is very simple. Maybe let's switch back to our prang brush that comes with our watercolor set here, our Oval 16, Prang Oval 16 semi-moist watercolor set. This is about maybe $5 or $6. You can maybe find it on sale a little bit less than that. And what I'll do is I'll load up the brush. And what I do is I just rest my hand on the pad of paper that I'm working on. This is my watercolor pad of paper. And I'm just going to start at the bottom with my brush, touch down onto the paper like that, and then just slowly move the brush up. I'm keeping my hand still. I'm just, moving the brush in an upward fashion like this, like that. Then I'm going to go in and get some blue, maybe 3 different kinds of blue, a kind of a viridian green looking paint, which is a greenish blue here, then more of a kind of a Prussian blue maybe, and then maybe some, well, this is maybe more of a Prussian blue like that, a French ultramarine blue, and then we just do the same thing. We touch hand on the paper. Obviously you're not going to want to rest your hand in any kind of paint over here. This is why if you're right-handed, you're going to try to paint your paintings all the time, or if you're doing these exercises, you're going to start on the left-hand side of your page and work over this way. If you're left-handed, then you're going to be starting your painting over here on the left side and then moving across like this, working across this way. This way you're never leaning into fresh paint, because that'll cause a big problem. If you're painting a painting and you're leaning into your painting, that'll ruin the washes. So we're just doing an upstroke, vertical upstroke, just like that. And you practice these. Let's do another one. One more. Green. I rinse the brush. If you need a little more spritzer on the paint to keep it moist while we're working, there we go. So we use some greens, maybe some yellow in there, maybe a little bit of brown too. Kind of an earthy color. And there we go. Now that looks much, and you can also slide your hand too. You could touch your brush down and slide your hand across. But you can get a lot. If you just hold your hand still, you can get pretty much, you can do everything. You can do everything in this one area without having to slide your hand on the paper, but you can slide your hand on the paper too. Let's do one more. Let's do a black up here. And we'll mix into the black maybe a little bit of blue. Okay, let's try that. Awesome. Very powerful, bold looking color, right? That black with a little bit of blue mixed in there. Now we're going to do, let's try horizontal strokes. These are fun too. So I think just with this bit of swatches we're doing right now, you'll have enough to start out, and this will hold you over for a couple months or so if you're just practicing these. And we're going to do horizontals. Or actually, we're going to do horizontal. So I'm just going to label this horizontal. And it's good too if you can write this down on your paper when you're doing your practice swatches. This way, you can always kind of refer to it quick and go, oh yeah, that's my S stroke there. Oh, that's my H stroke, Z stroke. And we'll do another exercise after this one. We'll do one more after this horizontal strokes. Horizontal strokes. And we'll do one more after this. And okay, and then let's maybe do the flat brush. Why not? So here we'll just maybe so now we're just using our square brush, our flat brush. So we load up the brush with plenty of paint, and we're just going to go across like this. And then you just go all the way across like that. Awesome. Look, that looks great, doesn't it? This brush is really nice because it gives you those really sharp lines. So if you're doing anything with like buildings, structures, houses, things like that, architecture, flat brushes are just beautiful for that type of subject matter. And let's get into some blues and purples. Again, I just grabbed a lot of that paint we just put on there. Now the only thing with this is I have just painted this wash, and it's already dry, so I can rest my hand on it. But sometimes it won't dry that fast. This is drying fast. But always be aware of when you're resting your hand down. You can also use your pinky. You can take your pinky and put your pinky down on the paper instead of using your hand on the paper. You can also use your pinky finger to like that. And there we have it. Let's do one more. Let's do that black and that blue. That looks really cool. We'll make that black and blue kind of mixture. Maybe a touch of green in there too. See how that looks. We just need a touch more water, so I go into my water bucket and I get a little bit more water, like that. Let's try this one here. Wow, isn't that beautiful? And that's all it is just touching down the brush and just gently sliding it across your paper like that. And again, if you want to put your pinky down on the paper while you do this and then slide it across, or you can use your hand by just resting your hand on the paper like that and then sliding your hand across the paper a little bit. Now the key is when you're doing paintings, you I'm using a pad of paper right now, but generally you're going to want to try to always have your paper that you're painting on, your painting, you're always going to want to have a larger board underneath it so that your hand can slide off onto a smooth board so you're not tipping over off of the pad. So that's why I wouldn't suggest painting on pads so much, like big thick pads of paper, because then you have that awkward transition from the pad off to the table. So if you're working on a table, I would say if this is your table, or if this is your working table, you would tape, this is your table or your board. You might have a piece of masonite board you use. Your masonite board would be larger than your painting size that you're working on. You might have a couple different size boards you work on. If you're going to do a small painting, you wouldn't have to have a big, large board to work on. You could use on a smaller board, but you'd always want to keep your painting, your paper, watercolor papers here. So let's say this is your watercolor paper here, and here's your tape. You're taping your paper to the board. You always want to have that extra room around the board that your hand can work on. You can slide your hand over and on top of the board over here, and if you just have one sheet of paper on your board, it's smooth, so you can just kind of smoothly go across and continue sliding your hand right over onto the board. Versus if you have a large pad of paper that you're painting on, that's more awkward, because then if you can imagine, you have that block of paper like this, so that when you're going across and sliding your hand across the paper, all of a sudden your hand's going to tip off the pad of paper. That could cause some, unpleasant marks on your painting as you're going. You might get a weird blip of color or something like that. So just a little idea there, a little tidbit of information for those of you that are thinking to yourself, well, what happens if I am using a block or a big thick pad of paper? What happens when I slide to the right and then my hand goes, flops off to the right? No big deal. You'll just remember that you're better off when you're painting with your finished paintings, using just one sheet of paper to paint on, and then having that on your board taped down with plenty of extra working board around the outside of your watercolor painting. So if this is your watercolor painting, you're going to have plenty of room around that whole board for your hand to work around as you're painting on your painting, if that makes sense. So that's an important thing. And also, I just wanted to mention, if you want to, this is one more step you can do. You could take your, pick any one. Let's pick the Z-stroke. You can take your Z-stroke and make a time lapse. So if you can imagine, you can make a time lapse of your Z-stroke so that you kind of see how it progresses. So then we could take we could say this is a Z-stroke time lapse. Just a phrase I have. I don't know if it kind of works with this. So you're having we're going to have a Z stroke time lapse, and then what we're going to do is we're going to do each step of the way. So the first, let's try some more green. Let's do some of the green. So the first part of your Z stroke is like this. Remember we did this? Okay, so that's one. Then we go in and we do that's the part, that's two. So that's what it looks like at the second stage. Then we go in here and we do 1, 2, 3, 4. That we do one more like that. That's the third stage of what the Z stroke looks like. And then at the final point here, we're going to fill it all in and get everything filled in really nice like that. And then we can number these and we'll say that, this would be, this is 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then once this dries, you can even make some arrows with your marker. Once this completely dries 100%, you can make arrows on top of your swatches, or you can just do them up here and just say 1, and you can just do that. And so you see the idea. We have this all worked out, and we will see you on the next video, everybody. And we'll come back just one more time. We'll finish this up. I'm just going to take a quick break, and we'll finish up this video. We'll finish doing the Z-stroke time-lapse and the small little notes we're going to put on our page so we have this to refer back to. Okay, so I'm just going to take one more quick break, and then we will be right back. Okay, we're going to get started again once more. Let's get some more of our labeling here. So we're going to, this is always good to do. Sometimes when you're doing like exercises like this, if you make notes on these, you can save these. So I would save this sheet as I have it here. I would save this sheet with all the notes on it, and I would put that in a folder. So maybe that's something you want to do. You have this in a folder, or maybe you pin this up in or tape it up on a wall if it's near where you work, your studio space. Maybe we'll go over that in another future video. For extreme beginners, you're going to want to have a little space that you carve out in your place where you live, where you can kind of keep all your art stuff in one place. Like we wouldn't want to be keeping our brushes and paints in a drawer over in a room down the hall over there, and then our paper down in the basement. And if all your stuff is all over the place where you live, you'll have a harder time practicing and doing your drawing and painting exercises and so forth, and your paintings actually. So it's always good to have everything in one location if you can. If you can have a little small room that you can dedicate to all your painting, where you can keep your paints, your paper, your brushes. You can have these things maybe pinned up or taped up on the wall. It depends how much room you have. I know some people, you might have more room, some of you might have less room, but you try to make do with what you have, and according to the availability of your space. But in any case, we'll go over that in another video coming up in the future. The near future, we'll cover having a space dedicated for your artwork, and if that's a little tight and you don't have maybe a room or a small little spot you can put a table or something like that, well, then we'll go over other methods. There's other ways to do it too as well. But here we're doing our swatches. Let's continue with this. So now you can see that the first stroke is the Z stroke. We're doing the Z stroke time lapse. The first stroke is the Z, and then the second one is like this, and then there, and then the third one is like this, this, and this, and then the last one is like this. And you can just put like X's to denote where your brushwork is going to be. So here the first one is just a simple Z. The next one is the Z completed with some paint here. The third step is the Z already completed with this completed, and then you have this new one here. And then the final one is the Z completed with this and this done, and then you're touching up around the outer perimeters of your swatch here, your rectangular or square swatch. So these are just notes for yourself. You can change them around and make them a little different according to what you want. You're the artist, you make that decision as to what your notes are going to look like, but that's something that I would do like this. And let's do a few more swatches. We have some time, so I'm just going to, maybe I'll do a couple more let's do a couple more horizontal strokes. So I'm just going to take my smaller brush now. We use the larger square brush here, or flat brush, as you can see. Now we can go across and just do a smaller size. And then you can do that. And then let's do another blue. Let's do a green. Maybe a little bit of blue and green. And let's do that. See what happens there. Perfect. Look at that. There you go. So you can see, you can keep filling up your page. Maybe I'll do another vertical stroke here. And then maybe we'll go around this one down here. We'll do some purple and greens. Maybe we'll go around this one here with horizontal stroke. Horizontal stroke, and then maybe we'll do 2 vertical strokes going down like this, and then a vertical upstroke like this. Like that. And then maybe we'll do one more around that. Orange and red. Maybe we'll try to go with a thinner line. Let's try to go for a really finer line if we can. Hold the brush just touching the paper barely. This is where you'll find you can practice your skills with your brush, get a finer line going. I'm using the same brush, and I'm just going to use, instead of pressing harder and getting a thicker line, you'll notice if I hold the brush, I got my hand on so my hand is resting on the table, and then I'm just barely touching the paper with the tip of the brush to get that fine line, like that. Same over here. Like this. Maybe a green. We'll do some green around this too. And this is a little thicker. Maybe this one can be wavy. Maybe you want to make one line kind of wavy and thinner and thicker. Maybe a little bit irregular, you know. Thinner, thicker, maybe little spots with some white paper there. Like that. Then let's try one more. Let's see if we can do something over here. Let's try this. We haven't used this too much. Kind of a purple color. Maybe let's do a H stroke one more time. H stroke. Then we'll fill in this top piece, bottom piece, like that. Then we can just, so this one we didn't use any pencil. We didn't pencil in our rectangle first, our swatch. We just painted it. Like that. So I think here we've covered a lot of good exercises. Let's practice these. Again, try to make maybe try this a few times before you make your finished copy where you're going to start putting in all your notes. You could even draw it all out first. You could draw your rectangles across here, your swatches up top. You can draw these in first, draw everything in first, and kind of lay out your overall paper, or create something totally different. Maybe do nothing but S-strokes on one page, doing different colors, mixtures of colors, or just one color, however you want to do it. It's really endless. You have all the, as an artist, you have all the freedom to create any kind of exercises you want. You can save these. These are great to have for notes when you're painting, so you can refer back to them. And but I hope you'll do these on a consistent basis for at least a year. At least try it for a year. You know, maybe once every couple weeks, once a week if you can. If you can carve out maybe once a day, 15 minutes, whatever you can. Put in as much time as you can doing your swatches and your exercises, because again, that's going to make it so much easier to paint once you're creating a painting. You know, it'll be autopilot. When you're painting, you won't be thinking about your brushwork. You're going to be thinking about what colors you're going to use, and you'll be thinking about other things that are more important in essence. So this will bog you down if you don't have this fundamental brushwork accomplished in your painting. So don't let that slow you down as a watercolor artist. Make sure you have these things all worked out. Keep working on these all the time, and eventually you won't need it. Like I said, you don't need to do these forever. If you do these just for like a year, you even maybe less than that. Everyone's different. Some of you might need to do these for like a year or two. Some of you might only need to do these like 1 year or 6 months. It depends. But you'll know when you have that feeling of just, you're not thinking about when you're going in to do your washes in your watercolor painting. Does that make sense? When you start realizing that you're not thinking about that when you're painting, then you know you've done enough of the exercises that you're not thinking about stressing on how your brushwork's going to look, or if you're going to, you know, how are you going to paint this shape, a square, a circle. You can do circles. You can do all these. You can do all these. You can practice doing circular patterns like that, so that you can do. So the more you can do these exercises, the better. You know, you're going to have watercolor painting for certain, because you're just going in there and you know, performing your painterly methods and techniques that you need to do on a painting. And you won't be thinking of that. You'll be thinking of other key things you need to think about in a painting that, you know, will make your paintings look better. All right, everybody, thanks so much. We'll see you again. Subscribe if you haven't subscribed. This way you'll get the videos. On the right-hand side down here, on the right-hand side is the subscribe button. Some of you haven't subscribed. Please consider subscribing. It'll just save my channel to your YouTube channel, so that when you come onto YouTube, you'll have my video waiting in your YouTube page. And this way, you know, you can just realize that I created another video, and you can watch along and paint along too if you want. It's up to you. And again, I thank everybody for stopping by and painting along with me here, and all of us here. And well, happy painting, everybody, and we'll see you on the next video.